Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
From the bottom of our hearts, we are so grateful to have all of you here with us this evening. And I'm Rabbi Jerry Newberg. I'm joined by Cantor Farron Rudnick and Rabbi Kevin Kleinman and Andy Heller, and Rabbi David Strauss is here as well, and Rabbi Richard Steinbrink. And we are grateful to be in community with you this evening. As we reach the 6th day since the devastating attack on Israel during Shabbat Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah, October 7th, we also return this week to the book of Genesis. It begins with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," and raises the question, what came first? What preceded the creation of the world and humanity? The poet Yehuda Amichai said in one of his poems, "I declare with perfect faith that the prayers preceded God, the prayers created God, and God created human beings, and human beings create the prayers that created God, that creates human beings." So perhaps before, in the beginning, there were prayers. In the midst of the profound grief and incomprehensible pain, there exists hope. Our hope is expressed in a prayer for the return of the captives, for the well-being of our soldiers and security forces, for the enduring peace of the state of Israel, and some measure of comfort for all who mourn. Together we join this evening in solidarity, in hope, and in prayer. May the angels who accompany us on Shabbat be with all of our brothers and sisters in Israel as we begin with that prayer of the angels, Shalom Aleichem, page 142. The music this evening is almost entirely from Israeli composers and Israeli musicians as we lift up their voices together.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hopefully you got that tune down, this Lai Lai Lai, welcoming in those angels with our voices unified in song. Lai 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 Lai, Yai Lai 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 Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Lai Yai Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai Lai 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 Lai, Yai Lai Lai Lai. We'll do that one more time. Yai Lai Lai Lai, Yai So as Rabbi said, our music tonight is by Israeli composers with the exception of, one song this evening, one composition of our liturgy this evening. And as I was looking through my books, looking through my files, I came across this particular arrangement of this text from Isaiah, and it's always spoken very profoundly to me in the work that I do with the disabilities community in making sure that those on the periphery have a place to call their spiritual home. And something about it caught me in a very different way this week in thinking about creating space and creating safe space. And so we join together with these words of Isaiah, Ki veiti, my house shall be a house for each and every one of you to come in safety and in unity. Ki veiti, beit vila yikare lechol ha'amim. 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 Lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 ki veiti, beit vila yikare lechol ha'amim. Ki veiti, beit vila yikare lechol ha'amim.
Earlier today, I was on a national Zoom, actually international Zoom call with Jewish National Fund, and a rabbi spoke about the significance of lighting the Shabbat candles, and in particular, the significance this evening. And we light 2 Shabbat candles for, we are taught in the Torah, Shamor v'Zachor, that we should both Shamor keep or guard Shabbat and Zachor remember. And I think that those 2 words, as he taught us today, have taken on such a great significance and meaning that not only should we keep and guard Shabbat and remember it, but keep and guard and keep one another. We are honored this evening to have Laura Scher join us for the lighting of the Shabbat candles in loving memory of her father, Herbert Ahrens. Page 120, 121.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we be our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
we turn the page as Cantor leads us in Kiddush, sanctifying this day of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav niratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uraton hinchilanu zikaron me'asei bereshit ki hu yom techilot b'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu b'charta v'otanu kidasha mikol ha'amim l'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'ratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Chaim.
We continue now with the Baruch Hu. We rise as a community and turn to page 146. Apologies. The cantor has pointed out correctly that we will continue with the welcoming of Shabbat with L'cha Dodi, which traditionally has you stand for the last verse, but you may be seated now, and we'll stand in just a few moments.
That was good. We needed a light moment. L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad ishmianu el hameyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shemot tiferet v'litila L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor habracha merosh mikadem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela Verse 5 Hitoreri kiva orech umi uri shira beri kevod Adonai alayich nila L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela Verse 9 Bori v'shalom alteret bala gam b'simcha u'v'tzohula toch emuneh am segula boi chala L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela L'cha Dodi likrat kala yalla now we turn to page 146, and we rise for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed.
We read together on the bottom of page 147. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. O let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence.
כשאני רואה בחלונים את שמורים לך וגם לי, אני שר לעצמי, איזה אחלה עולם. השמיים חולים, ענן ולבן, להבוקר בהיר, ובלילה אשן, ואחלום לעצמי, איזה אחלה עולם. בכל צבעי הקשת, יפים וחדשים, פרוסים אחרי הגשם, על פני האנשים, והיום כה יפה, וקל לי כל כך, לומר שאני אוהב אותך. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, איזה אחלה עולם. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. We continue together, page 154, chanting Vayahafta as you are seated. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet.
The top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Moshe Miriam Zeili, Zeili, Anu ve'ameru, Adonai,
Adonai,
Imlo,
Leolam, Vahed, Adonai, Imlo, Leolam,
כיפת ארוני את יעקב, וגלום יר חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
We turn now in our prayer book to page 653, where we'll find the words for the prayer, the song, Eli, Eli. Page 371, we find the words of our Mishaberach prayer, a prayer we recite weekly for healing. We pray each Shabbat for those in our congregational family, for our loved ones, our community members. And on this Shabbat, we hold so much pain for our brethren and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, those who have suffered bodily harm, those who don't know what the next day might bring. We pray for strength, for healing, for a return to wholeness, And so on this Shabbat, our Mishaberach prayer is a prayer that we send internally to our loved ones and our community members, and thousands of miles away to all of those suffering in the land of Israel. From our community, we pray for Refuah Shlema, for Francine Allen, Rafa Al-Karam, Kurt Engstadt, Zahava Bat Aron Ve'etzi, Mel Claver, Richard J. Cohen, John Fallow, Phyllis Fine, David Friedman, Howard Glassman, Sean Hess, Nancy Hunter, Yasha Yehuda Ben-Leah, Patricia Levine, Sarah Lightdale, Terry Meadow, William Neville, Ken Paul, Reed Pirates, Mordechai Ron Ben Rachel, Chana Bat Rachel, Dr. Ira Sachs, Deborah Saltzman, Gerald Schamberg, Jane Thompson, Robert Thompson, Rachel Leah Bat Chayatzia, Edith White, and Joe Zoll.
Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Be'era Motzenu Mekor HaBracha
Bless those in need of healing
with Refuah Shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Tonight we're going to pray our Amidah slightly differently. We'll join together in our opening bracha to pages 164, 166, 168, and 170, and then we'll continue on silently praying the words of our liturgy, praying the words in your hearts and in your minds, praying whatever it is that moves you tonight silently. Please rise, page 164. Adonai, Sefer Tiftach, Ufi Yagir, Techilatecha, 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 Adonai. מתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבניהם למען שמו לאהבה נעלה חוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני
מגן
אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח מוריד הגשם מחכה חיים בחסד מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בגבורות ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע ולמען אתה להחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue silently. ברוך אתה אדוני אשר עשנו אסירי תקווה ברוך אתה אדוני אשר עשנו אסירי תקווה ברוך אתה אדוני אשר עשנו אסירי תקווה ברוך אתה אדוני אשר עשנו אסירי תקווה. Blessed are you God, blessed are you captives of hope, O captives of hope, asher asanu asirei tikva. Blessed are you, God. Blessed are you, God, who makes us captives of hope, O captives of hope, asher asanu asirei tikva, asher asanu asirei tikva. Let's try Baruch atah, Baruch atah, Adonai, asher asanu asirei tikva, Baruch atah, Adonai, asher asanu asirei tikva, Baruch atah, Adonai, asher asanu asirei tikva, Baruch atah, Adonai, asher asanu asirei tikva. Blessed are you, blessed are you, God. Blessed are you, God, who makes us captives of hope, oh captives of hope, asher asanu asirei tikva. Blessed are you, God. Blessed are you, God, who makes us captives of hope, or captives of hope, asher asanu asirei tikva, asher asanu asirei tikva.
We turn now to page 586. We rise together for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You may be seated. We turn now to page 597. We'll read responsively before Mourner's Kaddish. Yizkor, we remember. Remember our people who suffered and died, so that we could be free and secure. May their memory be more than a distant shadow. For their dreams left unfulfilled and lives taken too soon, we remember. Remember our brothers and sisters whose sacrifice kept the dream of democracy and justice alive. May their courage be our inspiration and strength. For life cut short and vision unrealized, we remember. Remember the fallen of Israel's and our armed services, the victims of terror and tragedy. May the darkness of their loss not obscure the light of peace. They were in love with our land and in love with life. For the agony, the tears, the mothers and the fathers, for the children who were, and for the children yet to be, we remember. And on this Shabbat, the first Shabbat since the tragic events of last Saturday, Yizkor, we remember all of those lives lost in Eretz Yisrael. And we remember those in our congregational family who have gone to their eternal rest in this period of Shloshim. Linda Cohen, Roberta Fine, Stephen Krulik, Edwin Rothman, Elliot Schulman, and Geraldine Schamberg. In Yizkor, we remember those whose yahrzeit, whose yearly anniversary of death, falls this week, ending on Shabbat. Rose L. Albert, Samuel Orit, Ruth Berger, Ronald Burchad, Alice Bolden, Willard Borrow, Aaron Buchwald, Bertha Cartoon, David Cohen, Samuel Deshevsky, Goldie Delheim, Frank DiPaolo, Harry Dubin, Karen Dubnoff, Shirley Frank, Marvin Frank, Helen Fryman, Isidore Friedman, Sydney Ginsberg, Brenda Phyllis Goldwasser, Jen Goodman, Goldie Green, Miriam Greenberg, Martin Grossman, Samuel K. Grossman, Beatrice Harris, Raymond Heimlich, Emmanuel Herman, Barbara Gay Hess, Alvin Hollander, Israel Horwitz, Risa Sandra Kahn, Charles Carabell, Esther Kaiser, Bernard Coleman, William Croys, Harry Madway, Margaret Mitnick, Phyllis Nemroff, Morris A. Roseman, Sanford Rubin, Dorothy Sickles, Paul Steinberg. And we remember Ruth Schifrin Strauss, Patricia Sakanik, Staff Sergeant David Weigel, Donald Weiss, Bill Bella Wind, John L. Wolf, Robert Wolf, Morris Zebro. Zichronan livracha, may each and every one of their memories be for a blessing. We turn now in our prayer book and rise as a community on page 598 to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitz Gadal, V'yitz Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach ru'ute, V'amlich malchute, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach la'olam ul'amei amaya, Yitz barach v'yishtabach v'yitzpa'ar v'yitzramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitzhadar, v'yitzaleh, v'yitzalal, Shemei dukudsha barichu, le'ela minkol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, amen. You may be seated.
Emil Fackenheim is one of the most prominent modern Jewish philosophers. And in the wake of the Holocaust, he articulated a 614th commandment. And in case you're not clear, there were 613 before articulated in the Torah. And that 614th commandment is that we should not give Hitler a posthumous victory. And so that is why we gather here tonight in solidarity, in prayer, and in hope as we began our service. And so as we think about what comes next, I can't help but think about what Dr. Fackenheim shared with us nearly 80 years ago. And so in light of his teaching, I share with you this. Perhaps some of you saw or were part of, I know many of you were part of, on Monday at 2 p.m., Wednesday, whenever we sang the Hatikva. I don't remember. Wednesday at 2 p.m. And I saw many of you wonderful people, and including one set of parents who have a son at Wake Forest. And because Israel is already a very contentious topic on college campuses, I asked how things were at Wake Forest. So they said, we haven't heard anything, so I said, no news is good news. And then they had a vigil that night that went very well, and our beloved Will Treeman was quoted in the student newspaper. But fortunately, his parents also followed up with this. One of Will's high school friends is in the IDF, in combat, and has been texting with updates. He played against Will in fantasy football this week and beat Will's team badly. So he said, quote, I am literally fighting in a war and was still able to beat you in fantasy football. So we are grateful to Will and his friend for that, to Dr. Fackenheim for teaching us that we must carry on. And so, without any further ado, the president of our Board of Trustees, Lori Robbins, for a few of this week's announcements, because together we are in community and we will continue to be in community.
I am a bit taller, it's true. I didn't wear the short heels tonight either, I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming, and Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. First, I want to thank Rabbi Newberg, Rabbi Kleinman, Kenna Rudnick, and Andy Heller for leading us in a very meaningful service this evening. After a week like we've had, I know for me it was quite cathartic. And a special thank you to every one of you that came this evening for joining us on live stream as we came together as a community to support one another, joining in prayers of peace. I also want to call everybody's attention to some upcoming programs and events. Join Rabbi Newberg tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for Torah study, followed by our Shabbat morning service. Both Torah study and services will be in person and on Zoom. Join the Federation of the Greater Philadelphia and community members from across the region in a march for Israel on Monday, October 16th at 4 p.m. The march starts at City Hall and it ends at 5 p.m. with a rally at Independence Hall. Let's march in support of Israel and peace. Join our Tikkun Olam network on Thursday from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. at the Mitzvah Circle Foundation. Volunteers are needed to pack boxes of clothing and other necessities for families in need. Save the date for next Shabbat morning walk with Rabbi Newberg, Saturday, October 21st at 9 a.m. at Haverford Reserve. Let's just hope there's no rain. Every Saturday there's been rain. What's better than a fall crisp weekend and one spent outside with your friends from MLRT? MLRT is proud to join Beth David and Temple Shalom to offer an introduction to Judaism class. Whether you're part of an interfaith couple considering conversion to Judaism or you want to learn more about your own faith on an adult level, this 18-week class will offer a basic foundation in Judaism. And finally, the mainline speaker series is back this fall. We hope that you will join us for an evening with author, comedian, screenwriter, Senator Al Franken on Wednesday, November 8th. Tickets are going fast, so please look on our website to get your ticket soon. You can also find all other information about our programs in our bulletin, newsletter, and on our website. Wishing everybody a peaceful week ahead. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you, Lori. Our closing song is going to be Yerushalayim Shel Zahav on page 660, and then we'll transition to the learning and discussion portion of the evening. You're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go. And anyway, so page 660, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. Let's all join our voices together.
We'll do verses 1, 3, and 4. Avir harim salul kayayin vereach oranim nisa beruach harabayim im kol pa'amonim uvtademat ilan la'even shvuya b'chaloma ha'ir asher badan yoshevet ubeliba Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or alo lechol shirayich ani kinur Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or alo lechol shirayich חזרנו אל בורות המים, לשוק ולכיכר, שופר קורא בהר הבית, בעיר העתיקה, ובמרות אשר בסלע, אלפי שמשות זכור, ושוב נרד אל ים המלך בדרך Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halo lechol shirayich ani kinor Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halo lechol shirayich ani אך בבואי היום לשיר לך ולך לקשור כתרים קטונתי מצעיר בנייך ומאחרון המשוררים כי שמך זורע והשפתיים כי נשיקת שרה אם אשכחך ירושלים אשר כולה Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or alo lechol shirayich ani kinor Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or alo lechol shirayich ani
Shabbat Shalom. So as I said, we are going to transition to a learning and discussion portion. If you wish to remain, we'd love to have you. If not, no hard feelings. Same to all of you who have joined us online. We will continue to have the screen available for all of you as well. I know that there is a tremendous range of emotions that we are all feeling. Those of you in the back, we have more seats available up front if you'd like to join us up front. You can see the screen better. Everything will be on the screen, just FYI. So, this has been an incredibly painful and difficult week in so many regards, and there is a tremendous range of emotion. We have several therapists in the room too, should we need them. And I know that many of us are indescribably angry and indescribably sad, and almost every other emotion that we can think of right now. What I'm going to share with you now is what we shared with mostly with our post-B'nai Mitzvah students on Tuesday night. And we had the parents come in at the end, and so they were able to see part of it. And when we followed up with those parents, they found it to be helpful and wanted more, and they had missed most of the presentation. So this is somewhat in response to that, and also because I think that it's very important that we all have a shared experience of what we are talking about, how we're talking about it, how we're defining different aspects of this conflict. And so we try very hard to ground this conversation in whatever facts that we have. There is a ton to discuss. It is impossible for us to negotiate and navigate it all in our time together this evening. We will have a hard stop by 9 p.m. because that's when the security guards go, and I'm pretty sure nobody wants to be here past that time. So you'll forgive me if I do not get to everything. I apologize in advance if I don't get to all questions. And again, this is not for us to debate the situation. This is for us to find language that is constructive and is informed. Any questions before I get started? All right. Oh, sorry, Cantor. Oh, where'd she go? All right. All right. We start with, what is the Gaza Strip? I know we've been watching TV a lot and you've seen many maps, but important to define. This is the Gaza Strip. To the north and to the east, it is bordered by Israel, and its southern border is with Egypt. As of last news I heard, obviously the border crossings to Israel are completely closed. The one to Egypt is theoretically open, although apparently it has suffered due to some missile strikes, and Egypt is deeply concerned about the number of refugees that it will likely be admitting for, I think, some obvious reasons and probably for some not so obvious reasons. But as you can see by comparison, it's not that much bigger than Washington, D.C., and the population of Washington, D.C. is just under 700,000, and the population in this small strip of land is 2.1 million people. In addition, as you probably heard, Israel indicated that those living in northern Gaza should evacuate or move further south, and Hamas told them to stay put. Just by way of comparison, this is a population density map. So you can tell from this map, obviously, the significant population in Cairo, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, and then especially in the northern part of Gaza, which is Gaza City. But as you can tell, Gaza in its entirety is fairly densely populated because of that 2.1 million people. You can see it again a little more clearly here, hopefully. Feel free to move around if you need a better look. All right. Now, the Gaza Strip. This is a gimme. Who governs in Gaza? Hamas. I knew you would all get that one. Now, when did Hamas take control? I heard a lot of different answers. All right, so let's back up. Before Hamas comes to govern Gaza, in 2005, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon negotiated land for peace. And part of that exchange was this piece of land in Gaza, or as Gary Brock likes to remind me, properly pronounced Gaza. And they evacuated, or all Israelis left that land. The IDF, the police, any Israelis that had built houses and businesses there, they all left. They were paid by the Israeli government to leave, and Israel sent 50,000 IDF troops to assist those residing in Gaza to leave Gaza and resettle in other parts of Israel. It cost the Israeli government at that time roughly $2 billion. I am not an economist, but I imagine that is now significantly more in 2023 dollars, but just to give you some sense. So in 2005, Israel left that land, turned it over to the Arabs who wanted to live on that land, and there was supposed to be peace. Then we get to the elections in 2006, and who was elected? Hamas. And when was the last election that was held in Gaza? 2006. So Hamas has been ruling the land ever since. Any questions? Okay. Who or what is Hamas? I'm sorry that there's a lot of words on this page, but they're all really important. So, Hamas, or the Islamic Resistance Movement, is a militant terrorist organization that governs the Gaza Strip, a 25-mile-long, densely populated enclave of more than 2.1 million people. Hamas emerged in 1987 as an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood during the first Palestinian Intifada, or uprising, against the Israeli occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. Unlike the Palestinian Authority, Hamas does not recognize the existence of Israel and is committed to replacing it through armed struggle with a Palestinian Islamic State stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River. More on that last part in a little bit. But that is Hamas. Well, that's part of Hamas. Now this is a little bit of a, Aviva knows it's a trick question. Who are the Palestinians? You can, or feel free to raise your hand. We have a traveling microphone. We're happy to bring around. Right, nobody wants to answer because it's an impossible question to answer. So this is our best attempt at answering that question. And it's really important, right? Not every Palestinian is a member of Hamas. Not every Palestinian is a member of Hezbollah, which we'll get to maybe in a moment. So take it maybe with a small grain of salt. Again, this is our best attempt, but I'm sure that there are many definitions out there. This one is, I think, probably as good as it gets. But the Palestinian people are an Arab ethno-nationalist group residing primarily in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Israel, Jordan, and parts of southern Lebanon and Syria. Significant Palestinian communities are located in other countries as well, including Saudi Arabia, the United States, which is home to about 85,000 people of Palestinian descent, according to a 2013 U.S. Census. There are roughly 13 million Palestinians in the world, the vast majority of whom are Sunni Muslims, though a significant minority are Christian. Nearly 5 million live in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and another 1.9 million in Israel. The remaining population lives elsewhere, besides the aforementioned countries, also Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. So important to note that Palestinians are not just the Arabs who live in the West Bank or in Gaza, and they're not all Muslims. So it is a really challenging word to use when we're talking about any conflict that is taking in and around Israel. That was from myjewishlearning.com, and happy to share slides with people if you want to just either shoot me an email next week or what have you. But then there's also a historical context. So Palestine, because where do Palestinians come from? Palestine. Is not mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, nor is it mentioned in the New Testament. It occurs at least 8 times in 8 verses of the Hebrew Concordance, which is like a resource tool for those studying the Hebrew Bible, of the King James Bible, which of course is way later than we received the Torah. The name Palestine became common in early modern English. It was used, for example, by the Crusaders in the Middle Ages. According to one academic, Bernard Lewis, Europeans' reference to the Holy Land as Palestine gained greater currency beginning with the Renaissance. Leading up to Israel's independence in 1948, it was common for the international press to label Jews and not Arabs living in the Mandate as Palestinians. And this definition comes from Jewish Virtual Library, but both My Jewish Learning and the Jewish Virtual Library, well, I believe that they're excellent resources. They're not originators. They have researchers and historians and commentators who are taking, are sharing their wisdom and or coming from other textbooks. Wait, hang on, Aviva.
But under the British Mandate, which started in 1917, on the maps it was called Palestine, and that was the name of the land under the British Mandate.
Right. So I think that is again, we could be here all night just discussing and debating the history of the word Palestine and Palestinian. So if it really doesn't start to be used commonly until the Renaissance, then clearly by 1917, Palestine is not such a foreign word to people. And as you rightly point out, Aviva, it is often labeled that on maps. But it's not a bad word in 1917. It's just a place like England or France or the United States. All right. Other questions?
Was there an organized government during that time?
In 1917? It was British Mandate, so British really oversaw what was happening. I should also add, thank you for asking that question, that this conversation is incredibly nuanced, and as I'm sure you all will remember from your history books, there have been countless number of invading tribes, peoples, countries that have come to this land and called it their own over many millennia. And so it is an amalgamation of many different peoples over the course of time, and the push and pull that ensued, certainly from the Crusades on, is very significant, as is what has happened post-World War I, that then, of course, leads into World War II and the aftermath of World War II.
I'm going to as I recall, the original word is Philistines.
Yes.
From the Roman period, and it was employed by the Romans against the Jews because the Jews refused to accept their control of that area.
So Philistines is an important point to bring up. Philistines were a group of people, and it was not just as you mentioned. So this group, the Philistines, were one of the peoples who had come through the land over, well, many millennia ago. Good? All right. So just as we remarked before that Palestine is not a bad word, or it wasn't a bad word once upon a time, Zionism is also not a bad word. So anyone want to take a stab at defining Zionism? Okay, return to the land of Israel. Sherry? Okay,
It was the dream of the Jewish people to return to their homeland in Israel.
great. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's the movement for the self-determination and statehood of the Jewish people in their ancestral homeland, the land of Israel. The vast majority of Jews, this is from the ADL for those keeping track, the vast majority of Jews around the world feel a connection or kinship with Israel, whether or not they explicitly identify as Zionists, and regardless of their opinions on the policies of the Israeli government. And there are many different kinds of Zionism. There's cultural Zionism, there's religious Zionism. So there's many different kinds and affinities of how people feel connected to the land and people of Israel. But fundamentally, it is this idea that we believe in a homeland for the Jewish people, and that homeland should be in this precious little strip along the Mediterranean Sea. Good? Oh, Sophia. It's all right. Hang on.
Why did Gaza have to have its own ruling body or governing body? Why couldn't it just be under the rule or like undirect governing of Israel?
Things like that make me happy for our future.
Yeah. So why couldn't Gaza, this is the question, why couldn't Gaza be under sort of the indirect rule or the rule of Israel? And the question, it's a wonderful question. The answer, I think, is fairly simple. They did not want to be. They want to be autonomous people, just like Jewish people want to be autonomous in the land of Israel, or Canadians want to be autonomous in Canada, or any other number of geographical regions around the globe where people feel like they are a group of people and this is their land and they want to live there in their particular way of living and celebrating life. All right, now we get to, I think, a little bit of the tougher stuff. So bear with me. So this is really, why is this happening? There are many answers to this question. We may or may not agree with all of them. One is that this is about Israeli occupation. So this is from Rabbi Steve Leader, and he is a rabbi of a significant Reform congregation in California. Bless you. More than 18 years ago, Israel forcibly removed its own citizens from Gaza and returned all of it to the Palestinian people to thrive in freedom. Hamas overtook Gaza in 2006 and has since exercised its freedom to impoverish and oppress Palestinians, impose medieval restrictions on women, and terrorize and murder innocent Israelis, while blaming it all on an Israeli occupation that does not exist. This is pretty powerful language. And you might have some questions or take issue with some of it. When people talk about Israeli occupation of Gaza, they may not be talking about being on Gaza land per se. They may be referring to some of the blockade that Israel exercises to maintain its borders and security. So there is a blockade and, only 2 passages from Gaza into Israel, but that passage enables people coming from Gaza into Israel for work, like that they have work permits and they can come to work in Israel. It allows people who are seeking medical attention to come into Israel and seek better medical care. So people have been able to pass through those boundaries regularly, of course, until we get to a moment like this. There is a physical border, a barricade, a wall that also goes beneath the ground, because I'm sure you've all heard of the tunnels that Hamas has dug in order to enable it to smuggle in ammunition and missiles and those kinds of things. There is also an Israeli blockade of the sea and airspace, because what happens if there's not monitoring of the airspace? Missiles come over. So occupation, I guess it depends on what your definition of occupation is, but there's not been a presence of Israeli soldiers or police in Gaza. Myth. Hamas is not anti-Semitic, just anti-Zionist. This next quote comes from the Hamas covenant. Some of you joined me on Monday for lunch with the rabbi, and our unfortunate topic of discussion was the Hamas charter. But it is not a charter, it is a covenant. So I asked you the same question I asked our post-B'nai Mitzvah students on Tuesday and Monday. What is a covenant? What, Alan? An agreement. What kind of agreement? I don't know if it's maybe it's bilateral, but who's it bilateral with? God. This is a sacred mission, promise, bilateral agreement, whatever terminology you wish to use. But this is not Lily and I entering into a legal agreement saying I'm going to sell her my house for X sum of money. So clearly the stakes are much greater when we're talking about something with God. So this next quote comes from their covenant. So this is, again, just responding to the myth that Hamas is not anti-Semitic, just anti-Zionist. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight Jews and kill them. Then the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, "O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill him." It goes on to say that there is one kind of tree that does not cry out, and that is because that is the tree of the Jews. So it is not that Hamas is anti-Zionist. In other parts of the covenant, it talks about wiping Israel off the map, and as we talked about Hamas before and its definition, and wanting to establish an Islamic state from the Mediterranean Sea through the Jordan River, they also do not want any Jews living there. And not only do they not want the Jews living there, they want them dead. Hamas fighters are militants. How many have you seen articles or news reports that calls Hamas a militant organization? I imagine we all have. It is not a militant organization. They are terrorists, defined as such by the United States, Canada, the UK, all 35 countries in the Organization of American States, and scores of others, including the UN, who's not so friendly to Israel. That's another story for another time. Hamas is the real enemy. Rabbi Leader calls this a myth. I would say, I'm not sure it's a myth, but he goes on to say that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad are funded, trained, supplied, and assisted by Iran. This latest Hamas massacre is an Iranian-backed effort to sabotage a potential peace agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which would further marginalize the failing state of Iran. So we all heard about the Abraham Accords, right? So there has been a new consideration in this part of the world where balances of power and agreements have shifted. As I'm sure you all know, there are agreements between Israel and Jordan and Israel and Egypt. And then we had the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia, which include a few other Arab states. But places like Qatar are still not part of it, and Qatar is one of the places that said this was all Israel's fault. Before we get to the what can we do part,
so I don't know if you'll get to some of this, but sort of questions, objections that other people, other myths and things that are sort of seeing. How do we talk to or speak to? No, the idea of like that Israel sort of was stolen territory to begin with. It didn't sort of belong to the Jewish people, the war for independence, that it wasn't Jewish territory to claim recently, at least.
So Jewish people have lived continuously in what we now call Israel for thousands of years. It's not like our people left in 500 BCE and we decided all of a sudden in, the 1920s or 30s or 40s, this would be a good place to go back to. So the truth of the matter is many people have called this tiny strip of land home. You all know that Israel is about the size of New Jersey. You've all been to New Jersey. It's not that big. So there is room for many different peoples to live there. And there are many different people. Like we talked about before about the definition of what's a Palestinian. There are Christian Palestinians, other Arab Christians. There's Druze, which is an entirely different group of people. Their religion's a secret religion. You have to be a Druze to know. So I can't tell you anything about them. There are plenty of other Christians from around the, who live there. If you've ever been to Jerusalem, to the Old City, you've got the Jewish quarter, the Christian quarter, the Armenian quarter, the Muslim quarter. It is an incredibly important and moving place for the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as well as for countless other people. If you've been to Israel and been to Haifa, you have seen the Baha'i Gardens, which are some of the most magnificent gardens you will ever lay your eyes on. Baha'i is another faith, and that is their headquarters. Their world headquarters is in Haifa. So it is possible for us to live with lots of different peoples of many different cultures and faiths in the same land. And hang on, Mindy.
It should be pointed out as well that under the Ottoman Empire, before the British took over, and a lot of Zionists from Eastern Europe who made their way to what was Palestine legally bought land to start their kibbutzim and their settlements. They legally bought the land.
I'd like to also point out that 22% of Israel's population is Arab and Muslim. They're Israeli citizens. They have the same rights as all Israelis, except they don't have the obligation to serve in the IDF. And the Druze were not mandatorily enlisted in the IDF, and they wanted to be. So they have the right to serve, which is pretty incredible.
They also serve as police in many different communities as well. So, as you can, this conversation is a very intense, year-long course. We're trying to do it in a very brief period of time. But I hope that you can see through much of what we've discussed this evening that even things that we use in our everyday conversation in regards to Israel can be problematic. So it's really important that we take the time to define those terms for ourselves and for people we might be in conversation with, because I might mean Palestine or Palestinian as one thing, and Rabbi Kleinman could mean it in an entirely different way. And so we have enough problems as it is, and clarifying our language is really an important starting point. I know many, if not all of you, grabbed this on the way in. I'm not going to spend any time on it. This is from the book called Israel by Noah Tishby, which I know the Deshevskys really love. And it's a really wonderful book. And this is just from the appendix that offers some highlights of history and culture about Israel, a little take home for you, because we can't remember everything. So if you don't have one or whatever, there's probably a few floating around in the seats. I have one up here, or I'm happy to get you an additional copy. So I know we all want to spring into action. And before we get to our action items, I would like to state officially for the record, we are not running a 5K. This is not the 100-yard dash or whatever it's called. This is, I started calling it a marathon at the beginning of the week. This is an Ironman. We are swimming 2.4 miles. We are biking 114 miles. And we are running a marathon 26.2 miles. Everything we do now is critical. The financial support, the emotional and moral support, all of it is beyond critical. But we also need to be there in a week, in a month, and in a year. We don't know when this will end, and even if it ended today, which it is not, as you know from what you have seen on the radio, seen on TV, heard on the radio, read on your iPhones, the need is going to be so pervasive, so great for a long time. So thank you so much for all you have already done. Do not put all of your eggs in one basket. We need to keep passing the basket for a long, long time. So this graphic is from a wonderful organization called Israel 21C. Their website is Israel21c.com. They are full of wonderful ideas and tips for when you're traveling there or want to learn more about the latest archaeological discovery in Israel or where you should go eat in Tel Aviv, whatever. But they created this just now in support of Israel. So if you would like to post on social media, go to their website, get this, and post this. You can also offer your why. Why are you posting this? Why is this important to you? Why is it important that we support Israel? Then we have what we can do. Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia has an amazing campaign that is going, and many of these funds will be used for social services. They are being used to purchase and distribute things like mobile bomb shelters so that people can get to hospitals and things like that. And then, as you heard in the announcements earlier, Jewish Federation had a really meaningful rally here at the JCC in Wynwood on Monday. There's another one downtown, 4 o'clock at City Hall, that will go to Independence Mall. Friends of the IDF. I know we can't help everyone all at once, and so if you would like to be strategic in your aid, Friends of the IDF will help support the soldiers, obviously. And then there's also Zakah, which is a non-governmental rescue and recovery organization with volunteers deployed all around the country. They respond 24/7 to any disaster, crisis, terrorist attack, etc. Bless you. I will also say you've been receiving several emails from us this week. Those emails will continue, but those emails contained many of these resources plus others. There is now a page on our website with this information, so you can go back to the website whenever you have a moment to read up on it, to understand what the organizations are doing a little more clearly. Anything else?
So thank you for this. Thank you for all the information. The what we can do also includes sharing the information that you just shared with us and explaining to people who are misinformed for whatever reason, either by choice or because they just haven't been exposed to it, to explain to them the differences between what does anti-Semitism mean, what does Hamas mean, and what is terrorism. And I've found myself in that situation professionally this week. They're tough conversations, but really important. The what we can do should include explaining to those people what we are experiencing and what we're feeling.
Would it be helpful if we posted these slides or some of these slides to that page on the website? Okay, we will do that. Any last? All right. Oh, I did not mention JNF. Thank you. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but JNF is also on the ground. They have a ton of communities that they support in southern Israel and are working with those families and communities to get them everything they need, which is pretty much everything because of the situation, and getting them housing and to safety. They also are currently have a funder who will match up to $1 million. So if you want your dollars to go a little further, JNF is a good place. The match program goes through Sunday. Hang on one sec, Lori. I know, but now I get an extra steps.
Yes. Will you be posting all of these online for us?
Yes, the collective wisdom here said that they would like it posted on the website. So when you go to the website, I don't know if anyone's been in the last day or so, but there's a little box that pops up that says something about like, take me to the Israel page or something along those lines. And then if you click on that, it will take you directly to the page that has all of the information that we've been sharing about Israel. Ross tells me we're working on it now. Thank you, Ross. So thank you all so much for being here. I know our hearts are just broken, and I think being together provides a measure of comfort to know that we are not alone in this terrible crisis. So we have a prayer for Israel and then Hatikva, if hopefully you'll stay for these last few moments, but we can join together now in this prayer for Israel. Sovereign of all the world, accept our plea on behalf of the state and people of Israel. Pour forth your blessing on the land and all who call it home. May your laws of kindness guide its people, and may the teaching of your prophets live within their hearts and ours, only to do justice and to love goodness and to walk humbly with your God. Awaken your spirit in the Jewish people and the whole human family. Implant within us all patience and mutual respect. Uproot from our midst hatred, violence, coercion, and exploitation. We pray for strength of body and spirit to journey to the land and to be a true friend of the land and its people, a lover of Zion. May life there become Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, brothers and sisters dwelling together. And in every corner of the earth, spread your shelter of peace over the house of Israel. Strengthen the will and stamina of Israel's soldiers. Fill with courage the hearts of those who shield the land. Let their spirits be resilient and their use of arms pure. Valiant in war, ever striving for peace, may they overcome all enemies as you guard them in the shadow of your wings. For this and this alone we pray. Make peace in the land. May all its inhabitants be blessed. And may this vision of your prophet soon be achieved. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Amen. We have Atikva on the screen. If you would prefer, it is on page 678 in our prayer books. Please rise. The Israeli flag is that way. Shabbat Shalom. May your week be filled with peace of body, mind, and spirit. Thank you.